It's another beautiful day here in Vero Beach, Florida. I'm going to do another morning devotional. The family is gone. My wife and the kids are out of the house, which means I can do things like this. And nobody screams or wakes up from their naps or anything like that. I promise I won't do that again. In fact, I don't even know how it came through, so I'm sorry if I startled you or anything like that. We are going to jump into our devotional this morning. We're going to keep it a lot more chill than that. Of course, I have my tea. I've had a couple people say they really enjoy knowing what I'm drinking, and that all my mornings, they ask, do you always drink tea every morning? Yes, multiple times throughout the day. This morning we're rocking the Irish breakfast tea. I did English yesterday, so I figured I had to give the other side a little bit of love. So Irish breakfast with a little bit of honey, because you know I love that sweet nectar. So I love to see what you're drinking. If you're a tea person, coffee person. In fact, I would love to see your setup. Like, where do you watch these videos? I would love you just snap a picture. Do you do it in a devotional time, like sit down at your table? Do you do it while you're sitting in bed when you're waking up? Do you do it at the end of your day? I would love to see some pictures of where people are listening to this content. So let's just get started, jump straight into this. I'm going to begin actually with a verse, and I'm not going to speak directly about the verse. I have another little historical figure I want to talk about. But I do want to just read it and allow it to just be in the back of our minds as we move through this morning. It comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 12. It says, "Now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known." John Newton, he became a Christian in the year 1748. And he became a Christian after this storm randomly struck his ship out in sea. And he was petrified of this storm. And he dedicated his life to Jesus in those moments. And it's true, the moment his feet hit the English land again, he was taking a trip home from Africa. And the moment his feet hit his homeland, he did become a new man. And you probably have heard of John Newton before. He sang one of the most notable and most known songs in human history, Amazing Grace. I mean, how can you forget those words? Now, I hope that carried over to Facebook. I post this to my Facebook story, and in Instagram, you can put music to that. So that's what I plan to do. I don't know if that carries over to Facebook. So if I just stared awkwardly and was silent, I'm sorry for that. So you would think, right? You would think that the guy who wrote Amazing Grace, that amazing song, I mean, they would be as pure as freshly fallen snow. They would have their life figured out. It would be spotless. But that wasn't true for John Newton. No, John, he lived in a time in history when the slave trade was at its height. And Newton himself, he owned people. He was a major component in the trade. He was a captain of a slave ship. He, even after he retired from that industry, he financially invested into the industry. And it wasn't until decades later, after following Jesus, that Newton finally woke up to the horror of the slave trade. He realized the atrocities that he was involved in, and he began taking steps to eradicate it from England and other places. In some of his memoirs, he even says that his time, that moment in his life, that time in his story, when he was working in the industry, that those were some of the most humiliating years of his life. And so Newton, he joined up with other leaders. He joined the abolitionist movement, and he began seeking to eradicate it from his country. And it's a beautiful story towards the end as we move through it. And it's testimonies like John Newton's and testimonies that other ones that I hear like this. And they remind me of a truth that I want to remind you of this morning. And it's a reminder to me that the moment I started following Jesus, my life didn't just change. Like, it wasn't like I just woke up and I was a follower of Jesus and like my whole life turned around, that I began doing things that I'd never done before. And in some ways that's true. But following Jesus is a process. And for many of us who are watching this, you know it's a long process. Like, it's a lifetime process. And it's not one that you just decide and it changes. Like, I'm waking up every day realizing there's still things that I need to give over to God. There's still things I need to give up so that I can grow closer to Him. And it reminds me that what I do right, it doesn't get me in. And the things that I do wrong and the ways that I mess up, they don't necessarily rule me out either. And what I love about John Newton's story and the experience of other people in the faith like this, who have a faith like this, is that we are always given an opportunity to become somebody new. Like, whenever you finally realize that your life is not what you want it to be, whatever happens in your life for you to come to that realization, you can just start again. Like, God's grace is that amazing. You can just begin anew. You can begin heading in a new direction. Now, is it going to be easy? Of course not. In fact, you're probably guaranteed it's going to be extremely difficult. But here's what I tell the boys all the time. You can do difficult things. Like, you can do hard things. And as you move in that direction, give yourself a little grace and a little love and a little patience, a little time as you do it, as you begin moving in those new directions. And so that kind of leads into my question for this morning. What part of you have you changed already? Like, whenever you look in the mirror and you look back at your life, what has changed over time? That's part A. And then part B, which parts are still changing? What parts of you are still changing? And so I encourage you to think on those questions throughout the day, but I'm really encouraging you to write up in a direct message to me and send them to me. I love hearing from you all, and I promise I am praying for you almost in the moment I see I have a message and I read about you being vulnerable or things happening in your life. I am praying. And that's not to boast up myself, that is to try to build community. And I know many of us are miles, thousands of miles away from each other, but I'm genuinely just trying to just share God's love and His hope with you through this format. And so I love hearing from you, how you're listening to this, the ways you're sharing it, you answering the question, and just allowing me into your life to pray over those things for you. I really am humbled by that experience. So thank you for joining me in this morning devotional. I plan to be back tomorrow. Enjoy your tea, and I do believe I need to go sing I need to go belt some falsetto. And so Beyonce is going to sing us out on this one. Enjoy your day, and we'll see you tomorrow.